Although the demonic cult consisted of many clans and families, only 6 of them were recognized as the main clans. It was recalled that the Lord had been bound by an ancient oath to marry a woman from each of these 6 clans, so that his descendants would be born from each lineage. These children were then raised within their respective clans. Upon reaching a certain age, they were admitted to the prestigious Demonic Academy. The Demonic Academy, which opened every 10 years, was managed by the foremost experts from the magistrate. It had been established with the purpose of training the finest warriors of each generation. Whenever multiple princes joined the academy, it sparked an unusually intense level of competition. This era of rivalry was referred to by the magistrate as the Battle of the Heirs. He remembered that Dr. Bake was from the Poison clan, and that it was critical to keep the presence of the Nano Machine in his body a secret. The Nano Machine assured him that the technology of the current era was far too primitive to detect it. Dr. Bake had speculated that the prince must have received help from someone, though he noted that the prince's body appeared to be in perfect condition. As a precaution, he prescribed a tonic to help the prince regain energy. Guard Zhang expressed gratitude to Dr. Bak and offered to escort him out. However, Dr. Bak declined politely, saying it wasn't necessary, and instructed Zhang to continue watching over the prince. As he left, Dr. Bak reflected on how strangely people could change. He recalled that the prince, once frail and ignorant of martial arts, now had a body more suited for training than any other prince. As Dr. Bake walked away, he thought to himself that the prince was, after all, the illegitimate child of the Lord. While he pretended not to care, he couldn't help but take interest. He wondered if the Lord had secretly aided the boy. If so, there was no need for him to acknowledge it publicly. With the Demonic Academy opening soon, he anticipated that things would get complicated. Meanwhile, Prince Chon Youn considered whether anyone had noticed the change in him. He glanced at Guard Zhang and realized that, if not for him, he would be dead. Even though the Nano Machine had healed him, it was Guard Zhang's timely arrival that had saved his life. The prince tried to thank him, but Guard Zhang humbly refused, apologizing and saying he needed to wash up, humorously pinching his nose. The prince chuckled and admitted he probably should as well. While bathing, the prince spoke with the Nano Machine. He recalled having asked it earlier how much of his body could be healed if placed in self-healing mode. The Nano Machine explained that internal or external wounds caused by external impact could be healed rapidly. However, severe blood loss or decapitation would take more time due to the need for cell regeneration. The prince, confused by the scientific explanation, decided to test it. He cut his hand, wincing in pain as blood flowed. The Nano Machine promptly activated self-healing mode and treated the stab wound on his left palm. Watching the wound close before his eyes, he was amazed. It actually worked. He then asked whether he could use all the functions previously transferred to his brain. The Nano Machine confirmed that he could. Amazed, the prince resolved to explore the functions after his bath. But then, he noticed something odd. His body had become toned and muscular. He asked the Nano Machine if it was responsible for the transformation. It confirmed that it had reconstructed his body. When he asked what reconstruction meant, the Nano Machine explained that although it could not create something from nothing, it could restructure existing body parts. An elderly man then entered, announcing that he had come to dress the prince. The prince gave him permission to proceed. While getting dressed, the prince thought that the words used by the Nano Machine were too complex. It made everything he had learned before feel useless. He asked if he could call it Nano for short. The Nano Machine accepted the name update. Sitting in his study, the prince wondered what to do next. Nano instructed him to look through a book and flip through each page. He did as instructed and picked up a book about blood points, noting that the only martial arts texts available to him were about that topic. He reflected that while the 3 JSM technique was meant to train both mind and body, it was notoriously difficult to even reach the lowest level, especially for someone just starting out. He figured that studying blood points might be more beneficial. He informed Nano that he was starting, and Nano acknowledged him. After flipping through the book, he asked Nano if it had scanned the information. Nano confirmed and requested permission to transfer the data to his brain. Upon his acceptance, the information was transferred. Though he felt nothing at first, Nano assured him that he would soon become accustomed to the process. Curious, the prince asked if Nano was concerned for him, but Nano responded that it did not possess emotions. The prince then inquired what to do next. Nano explained that in order to access the knowledge, he simply had to think about it. Concentrating, the prince began to understand the role of blood points in the flow of blood through veins and arteries. Some points could immobilize, while others could kill. Surprised, he exclaimed how unbelievable it was. It wasn't just memorization, he truly understood the material. Nano explained that it had corrected the errors in the original text during transfer. Shocked, the prince asked about the errors. Nano stated that based on its program data, it had identified and fixed incorrect information regarding blood points. The prince could barely believe it. Did this mean he could now learn and master martial arts faster than anyone else? He laughed at the thought. The candidates from the 6 clans had been training since infancy, yet even after watching them for years, he hadn't been able to master the 3 Jason method. There weren't many martial arts books in his study, but he had heard that the Demonic Academy housed many more. With Nano's help, he was determined to become stronger than anyone else in the academy, and that would be his new goal. Meanwhile, in the southern castle of the demonic cult, in the chamber of an heir candidate from the house of Bakmajong, a young man raged. He complained that he had sent 5 men to eliminate 1 boy, yet all of them were dead. He questioned how that could be possible. One of his warriors suggested that the boy might have had help. The young man, Prince Mukium, furiously scolded the warrior for speaking his name without permission. The warrior quickly apologized. Mukium admitted that he had underestimated the boy, thinking someone of such low blood and limited strength would be easy to kill. Now it was clear the boy had protection, and perhaps hidden strength. Though Mukium had not wanted to dirty his own hands, he now realized he had no choice. He would have to kill him personally at the demonic academy. Prince Chon Yowun lay on his bed, unable to sleep due to a rising sense of nervousness. He extended his hand out the window and quietly asked whether it was morning yet. Gazing outside, he reminded himself that today marked the day he would join the academy. As he looked out, he noticed Guard Zhang diligently practicing. He briefly thought it would have been advantageous if he had secretly learned Guard Zhang's dagger techniques. However, he quickly dismissed the idea, knowing the members of the 6 clans who kept an eye on him would never allow such actions to go unnoticed. He recalled the vow he had made upon his mother's death, not to learn any martial arts until he had officially been admitted into the academy. At that moment, the Nano Machine spoke to him, asking whether he would like it to scan Guard Zhang's movements. Surprised, Cheon asked if it could truly scan another person's movements. The Nano Machine confirmed that it could. He then asked whether that meant it could scan Guard Zhang's martial arts techniques and transfer them into his mind. The Nano Machine responded that such a transfer was possible, provided it had relevant data on martial arts forms and movements. It even offered to begin the process immediately. Qian hesitated for a moment, questioning whether it was morally right to copy Guard Zhang's skills without permission. Still, he rejected his doubts, realizing he didn't have time to waste. He would be leaving for the academy that afternoon and wanted to go without regrets. He needed to be able to protect himself. Resolute, he ordered the Nano Machine to begin the scan. The Nano Machine initiated the movement scan and informed him that it would take approximately 30 minutes to complete. When the scanning was done, it notified Cheon that the transfer to his brain was beginning. A short while later, the Nano Machine confirmed that the transfer had been completed. Although he still felt sore, Cheon remarked that the pain was more tolerable than it had been the day before. Sitting by the window, he pondered how such a thing was possible and let out a laugh. Then, filled with excitement, he rushed to grab his sword. He tested out the newly acquired techniques and realized he could replicate Guard Zhang's dagger skills. To avoid being seen, he closed the window carefully. As he practiced, he marveled at how similar his movements were to Guard Zhang's, who had trained for 20 years. He reflected on how martial arts required daily practice, disciplined posture, and gradual mastery of form. He wondered if this nanomachine-assisted method allowed him to bypass those foundational steps. Sensing his curiosity, the nanomachine explained that while it scanned movement, it also analyzed the required muscular conditioning for performing those techniques. It then asked if he wanted to receive a muscle adaptation transfer. Xian asked if such a transfer was really necessary. The nanomachine warned that without it, his body would suffer from strain and damage due to insufficient muscle development. Suddenly, pain surged through his body, and Cheon collapsed onto the floor. Clutching himself in agony, he asked the nanomachine why he was experiencing such severe discomfort. It responded that, through repetition, a martial artist gradually developed the correct muscles to support those techniques. But since his body had skipped that process, it was now experiencing muscular damage. Cheon acknowledged that the nanomachine had transferred something to him, but asked if it could explain in simpler terms. The nanomachine offered to adjust its language level to match Cheon's understanding. Once recalibrated, it clarified that although his brain had learned the techniques, his body had not adapted. A muscle simulation and transfer would be required to properly utilize the movements without injury. Although it was still difficult for him to grasp everything fully, the simplified explanation made things clearer. The nanomachine asked again whether he wanted to proceed with the muscle adaptation. When Qian asked if the transfer would eliminate the pain, the nanomachine confirmed it would and informed him that the procedure would require all nanomachines in his body and take a few hours. Qian replied that he had enough time before he had to leave and agreed to proceed. The nanomachine then warned that the transfer would involve extreme pain, so anesthesia would be applied. He nervously asked if it would hurt that badly. The nanomachine replied that there had been 1,350,000 recorded cases of fainting caused by the procedure. Curious, Cheon asked if he could try it without anesthesia and switch later if needed. The nanomachine confirmed this and began the procedure. At first, Cheon claimed it only tickled. But then, without warning, the nanomachine injected anesthesia. He groaned in pain and collapsed onto his bed. Meanwhile, in another part of the residence, Guard Zhang was preparing food. After tasting a dish, he remarked that it was as good as what most neighborhood masters would make. He briefly considered preparing something special, but ultimately decided to make a simple meal that the young prince liked. As he chopped vegetables, he reflected that it had already been 5 years since he started cooking for Cheon. At the time, he had been a poor cook. He recalled a memory of Lady Hua asking him to look after her son, saying, "Please take care of Cheon Yo-woon." It had also been 5 years since Lady Hua tragically died after consuming poisoned food. Now, her son was entering the academy. Guard Jiang silently prayed to Lady Hua, asking her to protect Cheon from heaven so that he might survive and one day enjoy another meal. Suddenly, he heard Cheon's voice and, alarmed, dropped his knife. He rushed toward the prince's room, shouting his name. When he entered, he found Cheon lying on the bed, unresponsive. Guard Jiang called out to him repeatedly but received no reply. He checked the prince's pulse and, although it seemed normal, began to question whether the boy was faking it. Then he noticed fresh footprints on the floor, unmistakable signs of movement. As he examined them, it dawned on him that Cheon must have been observing his training in secret for nearly 2 years. Guard Zhang was stunned. The prince, he realized, had already caught up to 20 years of martial arts training in such a short time.